Welcome to Ditch Auto Unlocking Manual Photography. My name's Jared Hill, and today we're going to take a look at setting custom white balance in your camera. Now, I recommend setting custom white balance when you have a controlled environment, such as the environment I'm in right now, which is a studio with even lighting all the way around me. Setting custom white balance is a lot easier to do and maintain when you are in a controlled environment and your camera isn't really moving a whole lot and the lighting situation is not changing. However, when you're outside or you're switching rooms or locations quite often, setting a custom white balance becomes a little bit more challenging. There's a lot of work that you'd have to do ahead of time, and then as lighting situations change, for example, lighting that comes through windows and stuff like that changes throughout the day, so it changes the temperature of the lighting in the room, so there's use cases for custom white balance, but unless you're in a studio situation or a controlled situation, using auto white balance is what I default to. Now I choose auto white balance because I shoot in RAW, and a lot of times it's just easier to let the camera do its best to get me as close to white balance as possible. There are some situations, such as when the camera is trying to do low light, where setting auto white balance or letting the camera auto white balance is not ideal. So choosing a white balance option is better. So we've got this little kind of makeshift setup here. I've got this little RC car here that we're gonna take a look at, taking a couple pictures of. Now my eye sees this thing as being like a dark kind of almost black color with white and red on it. And for me, this looks okay. You know, my eye is kind of white balance and I see colors the way that I'm supposed to see colors. However, with cameras, they're a little bit different. They do a good job of evaluating what they're trying to see, and it's a little bit challenging sometimes for these cameras to exactly see everything and figure out what they're trying to see. Now we're going to take a look at the menus here and try and get a good idea of what setting a white balance manually would look like. And the reason that we're doing this is because it's good to know how to do it for those situations where we need to control our white balance. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up the menu here just to give you an example of what this looks like. Now, the menu in each of these cameras is going to be different. This is the Canon 5D Mark III. The menu for other Canon cameras is going to be different, and especially with Nikon, Sony, Olympus, all those other camera manufacturers. But they do have a white balance setting. So I'm going to select this here. We have auto white balance, daylight, shade, cloudy, tungsten, white fluorescent light, flash, custom, and then Kelvin, which is an option that lets us manually toggle through the entire range that our camera is capable of capturing. So if you have a physical light meter and you're able to meter the light of the room, you can then go and dial in exactly what that light meter is telling you is true white for the room. So we can choose, let's just choose daylight just to kind of see what daylight looks like here. If we choose daylight, which is 5200, it's obviously quite warm for this room. The lighting that's in here is kind of cooler light. So if I go ahead and put it into this option, you can see it warms up the grain and the table quite a bit. Let's go ahead and take a picture. So we've got a picture here of basically what 5200 Kelvin looks like, which is what the camera is estimating with the daylight setting. So let's switch over to, let's see, that's 5200. Let's switch over to tungsten light, which is 3200. The lighting in this room is closer to tungsten lighting. So this 3200 actually should look relatively well in this photo. So we'll go ahead and take that photo now, which is about 3200. And then we'll go back into our menu again. And we're going to take one more photo at a different setting, which is 7000, which is what is considered the shade setting. You'll notice this is extremely warm. All the tones, including the tones of the table here, are really warm. Look at the skin tone on my hand, it's extremely warm. Obviously not a good setting. And then lastly, we're gonna take one more photo, but we're gonna do that in auto white balance, just so that we can compare these 4 photos along with our custom white balance. All right, so let's go ahead and take this picture. This one looks strikingly similar to the 3200 Kelvin. So what we're gonna need in order to set a custom white balance is something to set that white balance off of. Now, I tend to use these Tri-Grips by Lastolite because they're extremely easy to use one-handed. They've got this nice grip on them, but you can use pretty much anything that's considered white. You can use a white sheet of paper. You can use a piece of white poster board. So what I'm gonna do is slide this in front of the object in my camera's view. You don't wanna put this too close to the camera because you want the lighting to be hitting this. Whatever light your camera is gonna need to try and read needs to hit this. So hold this as far away from the camera as you can to where it covers the complete frame of the camera, but is also absorbing the light that is in the room or outside or whatever it is. Now, to take a picture of this, you're gonna have to go into manual focus because it's gonna be very hard for your camera to try and focus on this itself. So I'm gonna make sure that my screen is filled here, and I'm gonna take a picture, and then I could pull this away and put it to the side for now, and then put my camera back on autofocus if I'd like. So next is to go back into our menu, and in our menu we're going to need to select custom white balance. This may look a little bit different in your camera settings, but go to custom white balance, and then it's going to show you the most recent image that you took. This is an actual, even though it looks just like a white block, this is the last image that we took in the camera. And I'm going to go ahead and set this and choose OK. And then it's saying set camera to white balance, so I'll hit OK. We'll go back up to our white balance options, and I'll go to custom and choose custom. So now our camera has been set to that custom white balance that we just created. This is the only true way to do this. There are other tools that you can get. There's a tool called the Expo Disc, I believe, that goes over your lens that does a good job of turning your scene into a certain color for white balancing, and those are hit or miss. I've used one before and I found it to be okay. It's better than nothing, but doing the best option is to have something large that you can hold as close to your subject as possible and actually take a picture of. All right, so with our custom white balance set, let's go ahead and take a picture here and see what we get. So this photo here obviously looks strikingly similar to the auto white balance and to that 3200 Kelvin image, simply because my room's lighting is extremely controlled. It's the same lighting all the way around me, and the only thing that could potentially contaminate my lighting is the green screen that I have behind me that you know, could cast a little bit of a green color on things. But because the lighting is so bright in here, that's not really happening. So custom white balances, as I mentioned, are great for those situations where the camera isn't really going to be moving, everything in the room is relatively controlled. Doing a custom white balance is probably your best option because then your camera isn't screwing around with trying to figure it out, and maybe it might just be a little different throughout all the photos that you're taking when you would much rather have it be the same. So setting a custom white balance is a great option if your situation is controlled. Otherwise, shoot in auto white balance. It seems to, with these cameras these days being so good at evaluating the color, auto white balance works relatively well. And then if you're shooting in camera raw, you can of course correct those photos should something not come out the way that you were hoping in Lightroom or Photoshop or something like that. So now you know how to set a custom white balance for your camera. Use it whenever you feel is best, and like anything that you learn with your camera, trying things out and seeing what works for you and seeing what kind of results you're able to get is going to be the best option. So thanks for checking out this week's video. To learn more about custom white balance, we will be doing a video on actually white balancing in Lightroom instead of using the camera's white balance option. This will be a more easy to deploy tactic for those of you who shoot out in the field and all of that good stuff. So thanks for checking out this week's video. Make sure to join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/ditchauto, where this actual question came from originally. So make sure to join our group and join in on the conversation. Thanks a lot.